Cursed is the cursive. Before the ink, there is the word that never leaves. It forms in the dark behind the sternum, takes shape without permission, presses against the inside of the throat like a fist that cannot open. You do not write it. You do not sing it. It has no page, no audience, no air. And yet it rearranges you, moves the furniture of your interior in the night while you sleep, so that you wake in a room you recognize, but cannot navigate the way you used to. The unspoken word does not dissolve, it sediments, layers of the almost said, the never uttered, the swallowed whole, building in the body like calcium in an artery, narrowing the passage until what gets through is less than what needs to. The thought you did not think aloud still shaped the next thought, and the next, and the one that finally broke the surface, that was already downstream of a river you never saw. The word unwritten is not unborn. It is just unfed, starved into a different shape, harder, denser, more difficult to name, pressing forward from a place you cannot reach with a pen. Just another night, smoke-threaded and narcotic. The pen drags its life ink across the page, a wound reopening itself. Not foreseeable, not even by the sage. The sword hides nothing, bold in its intent, but the pen moves more gently, a baton through the dark, swaying the fate of all men. The hand delivers what the blood already sent, and what is written cannot be unwritten, cannot be unsaid, cannot be undone. It is binding, it is final. It sits in the body like a splinter, working itself deeper with every breath. The written word pardons, executes, draws men towards the light and into the pit. It welds flesh to doctrine. It carves loyalty into the bone. It makes law from the marrow of one man's obsession and builds the walls another man will die against. The room gets smaller. The walls hold what you put there. The air thickens with every word left standing. Every sentence another brick, every paragraph another door sealed shut. But the unspoken fills the space between the bricks, silent, invisible, already inside. The room was never empty. You were always sealed in with both what you wrote and what you couldn't. Stop writing, but the hands don't stop. The mouth fills with it. The throat closes around the silence, and the silence is not air, and it's the absence of air. It's the specific weight of everything unsaid pressing down on the chest from the outside and the inside simultaneously. A stone that has always been there, that will always be there. Sing, because the word trapped in ink needs a body, because the word trapped in the body needs an exit. Written words yield power only when received. If the writer bleeds his intent into the dark, and it lives only if someone opens the wound. So the chorus is sung 4 times. Lyrics that rhyme, easy to remember. The melody is the blood made warm again. It carries the intent through the air, through the wall, into the ear before the mind can refuse it. Without it, the word stays buried. Without it, complete failure. But melody can resurrect a word the way spring cannot help but push through frozen ground. That is the hymn that moves armies. That is the Torah, sung by the Jew in the dark, the voice the walls could not contain. Bring your anthem to its patriots. Let them feel it before they understand it. Sung, lived, worn in the chest like a second rib. And you can bring down the walls of Jericho with nothing but vibration. Curse is the cursive. It cuts, swift, like a stab. Leave blood pooling in the gutters between lines, filling the void like clay pressed into a mold, still warm from someone else's hand, spilling sparks, igniting the grey matter, setting the heart alight from the inside, the smoke rising before the pain arrives. vines drawn into shapes and forms, threading through the rips, binding the mind before it knows it's bound, before vanishing into memory, hidden until unhidden, a route you cannot see, pulling toward water you did not choose. The thought that was never spoken still grew there, in the dark, in the wait, fed by everything you almost said. The great revealer, the Judas kiss pressed into the page, the sword with which man opens himself, not thrust by another hand, his own, cushioned by his own palm, bestowed from the great conductor who lifts with the baton and does not lower it, the unspoken note, the written score, the sung destruction, symphonic death.
Imagine you wake up one morning, you walk out of your bedroom, and you discover like someone has built a solid brick wall right in the middle of your hallway.
Oh, wow.
Right. You'd obviously notice it immediately. And
Yeah.
you'd probably be furious. I mean, it's this massive, heavy physical obstacle forcing you to change how you move through your own home.
We'd have to walk around it every single day.
Exactly. But what if I told you that you build structures just like that every single day, completely by accident, and they are entirely invisible?
It's a crazy thought.
We tend to think of human communication as this, I don't know, this weightless, almost magical thing, just air vibrating for a fraction of a second and then disappearing the moment a sentence is finished.
Right, like it's harmless.
But what if the things we say, and more importantly, the things we don't say, actually have physical mass?
Well, it completely upends how we view our daily interactions, honestly. We usually treat language as a mere abstraction, something safely contained behind our eyes or just dissolving into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
But if we start looking at words as physical forces, forces with real weight and consequences, the entire landscape of human psychology just changes.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are immersing ourselves in a truly intense, just incredibly layered piece of writing.
It really is.
It's a poem titled Cursive is the Cursive, and we are pairing it with its companion explainer, an analysis called The Architecture of Cursive is the Cursive.
And we also have the audio recording of the poem being performed, which is huge.
Yes, exactly. Our mission today is to explore the profound argument this author is making about the life cycle of a single word. We want to understand how a word physically affects you depending on where it lives.
And we really need to look at how the poem itself is engineered. Because the author didn't just write, a nice essay about communication.
No, not at all.
They built a linguistic trap. The text is specifically designed to make you, the reader, feel physically cornered by its pacing and its sheer momentum.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand that trap, we have to start at the origin point of all language. Before a single drop of ink ever hits a page, before your vocal cords even vibrate,
Right.
every word starts in the exact same place, inside you. It's that thought you never say aloud.
Yeah, that's the one.
It's the feeling you just, you swallow whole at a tense family dinner. Or like that sentence you type out in a text message and then frantically delete before hitting send.
Oh, we've all been there. And this is where the poem gets incredibly visceral right out of the gate. The author argues that keeping a word inside isn't a neutral act.
We always think it is, though.
We do. We tell ourselves, well, I didn't say it, so no harm done. It's gone.
Right.
But the poem describes this unspoken word forming in the dark behind your sternum, taking shape entirely without your permission. It presses against the inside of your throat like, and this is a direct quote here, a fist that cannot open.
A fist that cannot open. That imagery is wildly aggressive for something we usually brush off as harmless self-censorship.
It really is.
I was really trying to visualize how an unspoken thought could do physical damage. And the closest analogy I could come up with is, well, it's like how background apps work on a smartphone.
Oh, okay, I like where this is going.
Like, have you ever had your phone just running burning hot in your pocket?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Your battery's draining by the minute, everything is lagging, but you look at your screen and there's absolutely nothing open.
Yes, exactly.
Those apps are invisible to you in that moment, but they are silently eating up your memory, draining your power, and degrading the entire system from the inside out.
I love that analogy because it really captures the silent, corrosive nature of the unspoken word. And the companion explainer really dives into this.
Yeah, what does the explainer say about it?
Well, the author uses a striking biological metaphor here, comparing these swallowed words to sediment. They don't vanish. They build up in the body like calcium in an artery, gradually narrowing the passage over time.
Narrowing the passage, meaning like the space you have to actually breathe and exist gets smaller the more you hold in.
Exactly the opposite of harmless. It implies a slow, silent restriction of vital flow.
Wow.
If you think about how plaque builds up in an artery, you don't feel it happening on a Tuesday afternoon.
No, of course not.
But over years, the space for blood to move gets tighter and tighter until there's a critical failure. The poem takes this further, describing how this unspoken word, quote, moves the furniture of your interior in the night while you sleep.
I found that line incredibly haunting. Moving the furniture of your interior?
It's a brilliant way of illustrating psychological shift. You wake up in a room, meaning your own mind, your own consciousness that you recognize, but you can no longer navigate it the way you used to.
Right, because things have moved.
Exactly. You bump your shin on a coffee table that wasn't there yesterday, your reactions change, your anxiety shift, your behavior alters, all because of the words you never let out of your mouth.
Your internal landscape has fundamentally changed.
The whole landscape.
And what's wild is that the author makes a very clear distinction here. The unwritten word is not unborn, it's just unfed. It gets, as the text says, starved into a different shape. It becomes denser, harder, and much more difficult to even identify. You might not even remember what it was you were originally trying to say.
You just feel the heavy, calcified lump it left behind.
Exactly.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of the text, this establishes the first wall of the trap. Keeping the word inside doesn't protect you from the world, and it certainly doesn't protect the world from you.
Yeah.
It just reshapes you from the inside out, dictating your next thought and the next one after that, entirely from the shadows.
So if we follow the natural human instinct here, the solution seems obvious, right? If holding the word inside is literally suffocating you, narrowing your arteries, rearranging your mental furniture, you have to let it out.
Right, you need a release.
You have to relieve that pressure. Which brings us to the written word, taking that internal mass and escaping it onto a page.
Yes, the second phase.
But I'm going to be honest, I struggled a bit with how the author frames this. I feel like I need to push back on this concept because it goes against everything we're taught about emotional health.
Interesting. What part specifically feels off to you?
Well, just look at how our culture treats writing today. It's universally framed as catharsis, right?
Sure.
If you have a traumatic experience or a heavy burden, every therapist, every self-help book will tell you to journal about it. Get it out of your head, put it on paper, and you will find relief. You'll finally be able to breathe.
Oh, I see what you mean.
But my Cursive is the Cursive completely rejects that comforting narrative. It treats the act of writing like a horror story. It literally describes a pen dragging its ink across the page as a wound reopening itself.
Yeah, that's heavy.
Why on earth is the simple act of writing something down framed with such catastrophic violence?
It's a jarring shift, absolutely. But the explainer really clarifies the poet's intent here. The violence isn't in the physical act of moving the pen. The violence is born from the realization of permanence.
Permanent.
Yes. The author is arguing that once a word is written down, it is completely severed from your control. It becomes an independent entity, and more importantly, it becomes binding.
Binding in what sense? Like a contract?
In every sense. Think about it. When the word is in your head, it's fluid. You can change your mind, you can add nuance, you can just forget it entirely.
Sure.
But the moment you write it down, it freezes. The explainer points out that writing is an act of release that you absolutely cannot take back. You are bleeding your intent into the dark and watching it dry into a shape that no longer belongs to you.
Oh, wow.
Right.
So you might write something down in a moment of intense anger or like fleeting sorrow, just trying to vent that internal pressure we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
But once the ink dries, that transient emotion is suddenly a permanent monument.
And look at the historical scale the poem applies to this. We aren't just talking about a private diary entry being misunderstood by a spouse here.
No, it goes way bigger.
The text reminds us that the written word, quote, pardons, executes, draws men towards the light and into the pit. The author uses this incredibly heavy italic phrase. They say, writing welds flesh to doctrine.
Welding flesh to doctrine, that gives me chills.
It's intense.
It sounds industrial, almost torturous.
Because the leverage of the written word is genuinely terrifying when you zoom out. Every law you live under today, every ancient religious text, every constitution, every death warrant in human history, every single one of them started as an invisible, weightless thought inside someone's head. But the moment they were made permanent in ink, they acquired the physical mass to control, confine, or end millions of lives.
Wow.
The poem argues that the written word extracts law from the marrow of one person's obsession.
And then, as the poem says, it builds the walls another man will die against. That is such a profound realization.
It really is.
You bleed this intent onto a page just to stop your own arteries from clogging, but the ink dries into a structure that outlives you entirely. It sits in the body of history like a splinter. You can't unsay it. The permanence is the trap.
Which leaves us in a rather bleak position, doesn't it? Keep it inside, and you suffocate yourself.
Yeah.
Write it down, and you build a permanent cage that outlives you.
Yeah, neither option sounds great.
But there is a very specific limitation to the written word that the author highlights. It has a structural flaw.
Right. The written word requires a willing participant. It demands a reader who actively chooses to engage.
Exactly.
I could write the most devastating, will-altering manifesto, but if you look at the cover of the book and decide to walk away, my written word has absolutely zero power over you.
The written word always stops at the wall of a defensive mind. If someone refuses to read, the ink is neutralized, which forces us to ask the next logical question. How does a word reach someone whose guard is entirely up? How do you bypass the conscious choice to engage?
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the poet's answer is music, the some word.
Yes.
Think about it. You can close your eyes to avoid a book, but you can't close your ears in the same way. Music forces entry. Have you ever been sitting in a coffee shop, totally focused on your work, and a certain song comes on the radio?
All the time.
Before you even consciously register the lyrics, you feel the melancholy in your chest, or you feel the rhythm making your foot tap. You feel the music before your brain has a chance to process the data.
That phenomenon is exactly what the explainer identifies as the third critical movement of the word. The some word actively and almost aggressively bypasses our psychological defenses.
It sneaks right in.
It is the ultimate delivery system. The poem provides two phenomenal historical examples to ground this idea. First, it pictures a Jewish person in the dark singing the Torah.
Oh, right.
This highlights how a melody can resurrect a buried or outlawed word. The physical walls of oppression could confiscate the books, but they couldn't contain the voice.
And the second example is so iconic. The biblical story of the walls of Jericho.
Yes, verse.
The text explicitly reminds us that those massive, impenetrable stone walls were not brought down by swords or siege towers or battering rams. They were brought down by pure vibration, by a trumpet blast and a shout, by sound.
What's fascinating here is how the poet describes the mechanics of this bypass. The poem calls melody the blood made warm again.
Oh, I love that.
Think about that in contrast to the previous section. The ink on the page is dried blood, right? It's static, it's cold, it's dead.
Yeah.
But adding a melody warms it back up. It reanimates the intent, carries it through the air, vibrating right through physical barriers, and slips into the ear before the conscious mind can ever throw up a shield.
You don't get a choice with music. The poem says you bring your anthem to its patriots and let them feel it before they understand it. You wear it in the chest like a second rib.
The second rib, yeah.
That is essentially describing a biological hack. You are hacking the human nervous system to implant a word they might have otherwise rejected.
The author suggests that without melody, certain words would just stay buried forever, failing to ever bridge the gap between two people.
Right.
But with it, the word pushes through the listener's resistance like spring, pushing through frozen ground. It's an unstoppable force.
So what does this all mean for us, the people actually trying to consume this piece of art?
We've outlined this inescapable triangle. The unspoken word reshapes your internal architecture. The written word binds you and history in permanent ink, and the sung word bypasses free will to conquer the listener.
It's a brilliant philosophical argument.
It really is.
Right.
But our deep dive can't stop at just analyzing the ideas on the page. We have to talk about the physical experience of engaging with this text. Specifically, we need to critique the reading of the poem.
Oh, absolutely. This is perhaps the most crucial part of the explainer's analysis, because the author didn't just want to tell you about the suffocating weight of language. They wanted to inflict it on you.
Yes.
The architecture of the poem is built to simulate the very traps it describes. Which is why we have to talk about the audio performance included in our sources today. I mean, listening to the MP3 reading of Cursive is the Cursive is a revelation. I honestly think if you only read this poem silently to yourself, you miss half the genius of it.
I completely agree.
The vocal delivery isn't just an exemplary. It is the engine of the poem's physical effect on the listener.
And you have to ask, does the reading actually convey the necessary tensions?
Right.
And I think the answer is a resounding yes. The performance choices are incredibly deliberate. This isn't, a relaxed, meandering spoken word piece you'd hear at a dimly lit cafe.
No, definitely not.
The reader in the audio file doesn't leave room for contemplation. They have to capture the rising physical momentum of the text. And you can really hear how their vocal pacing perfectly mirrors the trap sensation detailed in the lyrics.
It actually made my chest tight listening to it. Yeah, because the text is built with these short, repetitive punching lines, like it is binding, it is final, it is a wound. And when you hear it performed, the speaker barely takes a microscopic breath between those statements.
Right, there's no pause.
It feels like they are rushing toward a cliff. And as a listener, human empathy naturally makes your own breathing sync up with the speaker you're listening to.
Oh, that's such a good point.
So when the performer restricts their oxygen to push through these dense syllables, you feel restricted. The voice literally enacts the feeling of a room getting smaller and smaller. It's so claustrophobic.
It really is. And that breathless, claustrophobic delivery makes a specific structural choice in the middle of the poem stand out even more.
Oh, the list section.
Yeah. The explainer highlights a significant risk the poet took here. Right in the center of all this building tension, there is this list section where it just enumerates what the written word does. Pardons, executes, draws men to the light, draws them to the pit.
I noticed that. When I first scanned the page, that section felt a bit, flat. Compared to the violent imagery of the rest of the poem, it reads like a dry inventory.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually thought it was a weak spot, to be honest, like a place where the poet just ran out of steam.
It's a very common initial reaction. But this raises an important point about structural pacing, especially when you hear it read aloud. The explainer identifies this not as a flaw, but as a calculated vertical drop in intensity.
Like the flat stretch on a roller coaster right before the biggest loop?
Precisely. If the poem stayed at maximum breathless pressure for its entire duration, the human brain would simply adapt to it. You'd go numb to the intensity.
Right, you tune it out.
By forcing the performer to read a dry, rhythmic list, the author provides a momentary plateau. It gives you a false sense of stability. You think, okay, the worst is over, we're just listing things now.
Yeah, I can breathe again.
But that drop in adrenaline makes the subsequent rise, that final sprint of the poem, feel exponentially more crushing.
Because every sentence is another brick. Every paragraph is another door sealed shut. You are trapped in the room with what you wrote, and the silence in that room isn't just empty space. The poem describes it as the absence of air.
The absence of air.
It's the specific, suffocating weight of everything you left unsaid, pressing down on your chest from the outside and the inside simultaneously. And the way the reader delivers those final lines, you really feel that suffocation.
Which brings us to the title itself. Cursed is the cursive.
Yes.
It sounds like a clever bit of wordplay, but it's actually the central thesis hiding in plain sight. Cursive refers to handwriting, the fluid, connected loops of letters on a page. But the word curse is literally physically embedded inside the word cursive.
Because to write is to bind. To mark something down permanently, to create a doctrine that outlives you, is inherently a curse. You are cursing the future with your present intent.
And the poem culminates in a final phrase that brings all of this terrifying architecture crashing down on the listener: symphonic death.
Symphonic death. A symphony implies a massive coordinated performance. It's not just a lone instrument, it's the entire orchestra.
It is the ultimate synthesis of the three movements. The unspoken note that altered your interior, the written score that bound you to the page, and the sun destruction that bypassed your defenses.
Wow.
In that final line, they aren't isolated concepts anymore. They are working together in perfect, deadly harmony, and the baton is pointed directly at the reader.
It's a breathtaking piece of art and genuinely unsettling to unpack. As we wrap up this deep dive, let's look one last time at the inescapable triangle this author has trapped us in.
Okay.
You possess a word. If you choose to swallow it, it acts as sediment, quietly calcifying and rearranging your psychological furniture until you are a stranger to yourself.
Right.
If you try to escape that pressure by writing it down, it dries into a permanent doctrine, building historical walls that may cause harm long after your bones are dust.
And if you sing it.
If you choose to sing it, you weaponize it, turning it into a vibration that bypasses the free will of anyone in earshot, forcing your intent into their nervous system.
The overarching takeaway from these sources is that there is no casual, neutral interaction with language. Every exit is covered. Whether it's silent, written, or sung, The word always asserts its physical dominance.
Which leaves us with a final, rather haunting thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day. We walk around feeling like we are the masters of our own language, right?
We do.
We think of words as tools that we pick up, use, and put back in the box. But if words actually possess this much independent structural power, if they can reshape our arteries in silence, bind our societies in ink, and bypass our deepest defenses in song, are we ever truly the authors of our own thoughts?
That's the real question.
Or are human beings simply the physical vessels, the warm blood that language uses to survive, to reproduce, and to spread across time? The next time you swallow a harsh thought, or drag a pen across a page, or find yourself humming a melody you can't get out of your head, remember that gravity works whether you believe in it or not. You might just be feeling the weight of the word.